Okay, we are going to be talking about the RNAV runway 31 approach at Hutchinson, Kansas, which we'll be practicing today. So I'm going to fly you to the Hutchinson VOR and have you hold there. The Hutchinson VOR is just to the south and west of the airport. Um, and you've been told to expect the RNAV 31. All right, so we are going to go to the FMS. We're going to hit the Depart Arrival button. We're going to select the RNAV for runway 31, and we're going to load the approach. Then we're going to come up, next step in our flow, up to the multifunction display where we'll display our chart. And all we're doing at this point is getting the minimums. And for this approach, we are going to be flying it to, we're going to be flying to LPV minimums. We'll talk about that first. So LPV minimums. LPV minimums are to a DA, and whenever we have a DA, that means we hit the approach button. And in the case of an RNAV approach, an approach button and VNAV. So we can be thinking about that. So we got the minimums, like I said, up in the MFD. And now we're going to come over to the PFD. We're going to select the refs button on the display control panel, the DCP, just to the right of the PFD. We select that refs button. And then the right line select keys on the right side of the PFD, the second one down from the top on the right, we'll press that one, and it's not displayed the way it, in the picture I have here, it's not displayed how it'll come up when you hit the refs button, but I'll have to do some YouTube magic some other time to get that to work. But anyway, we hit the refs button, we hit the second key down on the right line, the right line select key, second from the top, and that's the barrel mins. So we put the minimums in there. Um, and remind me, the minimums are 1770. So we put in 1770 in there in the mins on the PFD. So hit the refs, select the um, number two line select key on the right, put in our minimums, and after that, we come back down to the FMS. And now we're going to be loading our performance data. So we hit performance, select approach, we put in the weather, we put in our aircraft configurations such as anti-ice off, flaps 15, and then we go and look at our V speeds, we send our V speeds, we um, post the V speeds on the PFD. All right, so we went from the FMS to load the approach up to the MFD to load or to find our mins. We hit the refs button alongside the PFD. We selected barrel mins. We put the barrel min 1770 in there for the LPV to a DA. Then we come back down to the FMS and we do the performance or, post the V speeds. All right, so after that's all done, now we're going to come down and we're going to call for the descent checklist, run through this descent checklist, defog, pressurization, anti-ice, throttles, altimeter, landing data, which we did that. That's our landing distance, our speeds and such. And then landing light is required. And now our approach checks, seatbelt, shoulder harnesses, rudder pedals, avionics and flight instruments checked and set. Minimums, we did that. That's set. Passenger seats, passenger advisory switch, fuel transfer knob, anti-ice, flaps, takeoff and approach. So, once we're given the approach and we're starting to head that direction from the hold, yeah, we can go flaps. Engine sync knob off, anti-skid, check that it's on. Landing light switches on, annunciator panel check, pressurization check, and we do our crew briefing. All right. So with that done, um, let's say that we're leaving the hold. We're going to do a full procedure So let me pull up the approach there. So we're holding at Hutchinson, and we loaded the approach from the Hutchinson VOR. If you notice, if we loaded it from Mugger to Klobe, you see 3600 no PT, no procedure turn. If we loaded it from Wave on the other side there, or USECO, again, 3600 no procedure turn, that will delete the hold. So you have to load it, if you're given the full procedure, you have to load it from Memphis or from Hutchinson. I'm sorry, Hutchinson VOR there. That'll give you a feeder into Klobe, and the procedure turn will be there. All right. So now let's say that we're in the hold and we've been cleared to Klobe for the full procedure. So we'll have to do the procedure turn and to come back inbound. So if you look at page 28 and page 29 in the flight training maneuvers and procedures manual that would give you, um, that's what I'm gonna be following here. So if you're watching this, good to look at that. I can't post it here because it's proprietary. But anyway, so um, we're at Hutchinson. We've been told to go direct Klobe for the full procedure. So we already talked that we have our approach checklist complete. Now our speed here should be 150 to 180 knots. So let's say we're 170 in between, um, and we can even go flaps 15 here. So put flaps 15, and with flaps 15, remember our minimum controllable speed is going to be VAP plus 10 knots. So, but let's go 170 for now, and we're headed in. Um, we get to Klobe, we do the procedure turn. We're starting to head back inbound, um, and at this point we have um, pull this up. At this point, we're well. At this point, we can be approach and VNAV. So we'll look down in at the FMS as we're headed from Hutchinson to Klobe, um, and we'll see that it'll say Klobe, hold, and then intercept, and then it'll Klobe inbound course or something like along those lines. Anyway, it'll be the first Klobe that we're going to in the FMS, and then there's a second Klobe which will get us on the final approach. Um, so with this approach, once we're cleared for the approach, we hit the approach and VNAV buttons um, on the mode select panel. And let's get back to the chart here. All right. So we're doing the procedure turn, and now let's say we're headed inbound to Klobe and we're heading a 314, and thinking ahead of the airplane. Um, Everything's ready to go for the most part. We've got our mode selected. 1 dot prior to glide slope intercept. So we look up at our snowflake or vertical navigation deviation indicator, and once we get 1 dot, that's a trigger for gear down. And then once we are on the glide path, the vertical glide path, we'll put flaps to land. And now our minimum airspeed is VREF plus 10, which is basically VAP. So let's just say hold VAP. And this is what a trigger I use. So we get on vertical glide path, flaps come to land, and once they're there, I call out set missed approach altitude before landing checklist. All right. So the gear came down at 1 dot prior to vertical glide path. Then once we were on the vertical glide path, we put the flaps down and we called set missed approach altitude or before landing checklist, set, missed approach, altitude. And now we look at our before landing checklist, landing gear down and locked, flaps land, pressurization, check that there's zero differential, autopilot and yaw damp go off, airspeed, we're slowing to VREF, and speed brakes, retract prior to 50 feet. All right, so let's get back here. All right, um, so as we're getting closer to the runway, you know, we're looking at getting VREF, um, and at a minimum, or let's talk real world. So real world, when I'm flying this airplane, I'm VAP from the final approach fix inbound, maybe VAP plus 10, but I'm slowing down. For training here, let's just go with VAP between the final approach fix and touchdown. Final approach fix inbound. But then when I get to 50 feet above the runway, I need to be at VREF. So 50 feet over the threshold, VREF, throttles to idle, and then go land in the touchdown zone. Um, so just to recap, all right, we start out with our flow with the FMS, load the approach. We go to our charts, we bring the chart up on the MFD, we get our minimums. Then we come over to the PFD, we push the refs button, and we use the right line select keys to select baro mins, and we put in our baro mins, which on this approach are 1770. Then we come down to the FMS, and we um, do our performance, get our V speeds, post those. All right. Then next step is descent checks, approach checklist, and as far as the approach goes, once we're cleared for the approach, we hit approach and VNAV on this approach to LPV or LNAV VNAV minimums. So because those both are to a DA. Any RNAV to a DA, it's approach and VNAV. So we hit approach, VNAV, we're coming in. Flaps go to 15, speed about 170 or so. The book here says speed 150 to 180, so anywhere in that range. I just like to keep it simple, do everything the same all the time, so let's say 170. Flaps 15, and then as we're approaching the final approach fix, 1 dot prior to vertical glide path, landing gear down. Once on the vertical glide path, flaps to land. Once I'm flaps to land, then I'm calling before landing checklists, set missed approach altitude. Now I'm bringing my speed to VAP plus 10, somewhere in there, slowing to VREF. Once I'm 50 feet over the threshold of the runway, I need to be at VREF, throttles to idle, and put her down in the touchdown zone. All right. So, one little thing here I want to talk about also is what if we're shooting this one to LNAV minimums? So if we're shooting this approach to LNAV minimums, that means we're not check ride and they want us to do it to LNAV minimums, or GPS signals are really degraded and we don't have the option of shooting an LNAV, VNAV, or an LPV. So we're shooting to LNAV minimums. It's like old school GPS stuff. In that case, we look at our minimums. It's to an MDA. Being to an MDA, our mode selection is now nav and VNAV. This is really rare, but this is what we train. So you just got to remember this is the only case during an RNAV approach where we go nav and VNAV for our mode selections. All right, that's all I have for you. Thanks.